Rain pelted my face as security gripped my elbows, marching me across the parking lot like a criminal. Through the glass walls of the break room, I could see them all raising crystal flutes, laughing around her. Brooke, with her perfect smile and Harvard degree. Colorful balloons bobbed against the ceiling tiles, while my personal items sat pathetically in a soggy cardboard box under my arm. I caught Elton's eye, my boss of 3 years, as he lifted his glass higher in a theatrical toast. His mouth formed words I could read even through the streaked glass and pouring rain. She'll fix your mess. 3 years. 1,095 days of missed sleep, skipped meals, and solving impossible traffic flow equations while they gradually eliminated my entire support team. 3 years of creating something revolutionary that would transform urban mobility forever. We're pursuing alternative methodologies, Elton had announced 30 minutes earlier, sliding an empty box across his glass desk. Someone with, shall we say, more conventional approaches. I didn't plead, didn't scream, just nodded mechanically while something vital inside me crumpled like aluminum foil. 3 years of my life, my brilliance, my actual blood and sweat, dismissed with corporate pleasantries and passive voice constructions. The security guard, Dennis, who used to smile at me every morning, now avoided my eyes as he watched me toss my drenched box into the passenger seat of my 10-year-old hatchback. Protocol, he mumbled, almost apologetically. I sat in my car watching the celebration continue through the rain-blurred windows. They'd been grooming Brooke for months, the rising star with impressive credentials who questioned my methods during every meeting. Wouldn't a traditional framework be more sustainable? She'd ask, never having faced the real-world chaos of an actual traffic grid under stress. I turned the key, and my car sputtered to life. Conventional approaches, traditional frameworks. These were code for, we don't understand your genius, so we're replacing you with something more familiar. The highway stretched before me as my windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the downpour. I'd pour everything into that traffic system, my creativity, my intuition, my very essence. And now someone else would claim it. Wait, before I continue this story, I need to check something with you. If you're finding this tale of corporate betrayal interesting so far, show your support by hitting that like button right now. Drop a comment if you've ever felt undervalued at work, and make sure you're subscribed to catch the rest of this wild ride. Trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. My name is Zephyr, and until 40 minutes ago, I was the lead engineer for one of the most ambitious urban traffic optimization systems ever created. Not the type you'd notice from your morning commute. This was the invisible architecture that made sure emergency vehicles always found clear paths, that rush hour flowed instead of stopped, that a city of 2 million people could move like a living organism rather than a congested mess. I didn't look the part of a brilliant engineer. At 32, with unruly auburn hair I rarely bothered to style and a preference for comfort over corporate fashion, I was easy to underestimate. My colleagues learned quickly that my mind functioned differently, seeing patterns where others saw chaos, sensing the rhythm of traffic flow like others might hear music. The apartment was dark when I arrived home. No pets, no plants, no waiting partner, just the hollow echo of my wet shoes on hardwood floors. I'd given everything to that job, to that system, to solving problems no one else could solve. My social life had withered like neglected houseplants. My dating apps gathered digital dust. My family had stopped expecting me at gatherings. It wasn't supposed to end this way. 6 months earlier, things had been different. My project, my beautiful, complex, revolutionary project, had received glowing preliminary reviews. City officials had marveled at the early simulations showing 30% reductions in emergency response times. This could save lives, the mayor had said, her eyes wide with genuine wonder. How did you do it? I couldn't fully explain. The system worked because I'd spent 3 years learning invisible patterns, adjusting for weather variations, crowd psychology, historical data anomalies. I coded my intuition into the system, making thousands of micro-adjustments daily that no instruction manual could capture. Then Elton hired Brooke, just to lighten your workload, he'd assured me with that thin smile that never reached his eyes. The board wants additional perspectives. Brooke with her crisp blazers and flawless PowerPoints. Brooke who had theories about everything but had built nothing. Brooke who gradually appeared in meetings I wasn't invited to, who somehow had access to my preliminary designs, who smiled sympathetically when I worked late. You should take better care of yourself, she'd say, while quietly cataloging my methods, my insights, my breakthroughs. The first night after my dismissal, my phone remained silent. The second day, too. They were doubtless celebrating their brilliant personnel decision. The heart of their operation, my creation, was now in Brooke's manicured hands. I sat on my balcony that second night, watching the city lights flicker through the clearing rain. 3 years of my life, erased with corporate platitudes and a cheap champagne toast to my replacement. I'd been a fool to believe my brilliance would protect me, that creating something irreplaceable would make me irreplaceable. Sleep evaded me. I paced my apartment like a ghost, touching books I'd never had time to read, opening cupboards filled with quick meals and protein bars. Who was I without my work? What remained of Zephyr when the project that consumed her was taken away? Dawn broke on the third day, and I was making bitter coffee when it began. My phone lit up, vibrated. Brooke's name appeared on the screen. I watched it ring until it stopped. 3 minutes later, another call, then another. By noon, I'd counted 7 missed calls, each separated by increasingly shorter intervals. By evening, the count had reached 12. No voicemails, no texts, just desperate, persistent calling. At midnight, as I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, surrounded by old notebooks, the physical artifacts of my thought processes, the 19th call came through. I watched my phone vibrate against the hardwood, imagining Brooke's panic as she faced tomorrow's implementation deadline. The system would run, then gradually deteriorate as real-world complexity overwhelmed her conventional approaches. I let a smile spread across my face for the first time in days, because what they never understood, what they couldn't possibly comprehend, was that my traffic system wasn't just code and algorithms. It was me, my way of seeing the world, my patterns of thought translated into digital form. The system worked because I worked, because I'd poured my unique perception into every line, every function, every decision tree. My notebooks contained equations and diagrams, sure, but not the invisible connections only I could see. That night, I finally slept soundly, phone silent beside me. Morning brought 27 missed calls. Morning brought 27 missed calls. I made coffee and watched sunrise paint my sparse living room gold. For the first time in years, I had nowhere to be. No deadlines crushing my chest. No midnight coding sessions fueled by energy drinks and desperation. Just emptiness stretching before me like an unfamiliar landscape. My phone buzzed again. Not Brooke this time, but Iris, the only junior engineer who'd survived the team optimization 6 months ago. I hesitated, then answered. Zephyr? Her voice was hushed, urgent. It's falling apart. The entire North Quadrant grid locked up yesterday afternoon. Ambulances couldn't get through. They had to dispatch helicopters for 3 separate emergencies. I said nothing, just listened to her rapid breathing. Brooke keeps trying to recalibrate using standard parameters, but it's making everything worse. Elton's losing his mind. The mayor called twice yesterday. That sounds challenging, I replied, my voice neutral. Challenging? It's a nightmare. The board called an emergency meeting. The city's threatening to terminate the contract. Iris paused. They need you. No, they fired me, I corrected, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. They escorted me out while celebrating my replacement. They don't need me. They're experiencing consequences. Zephyr, please. Real people are suffering. That landed like a punch to my stomach. Real people. Not just Elton with his smug smile. Not just Brooke with her stolen position. Ordinary citizens trying to navigate their lives. I closed my eyes. I have to go, Iris. Wait. I ended the call, set my phone down gently, and walked to the window. The city sprawled below. My city, with its unique rhythm and flow, its complex network of human movement that I'd spent years learning to understand. People were suffering because of corporate arrogance. My doorbell rang an hour later. I knew who it would be before I opened it. Elton stood there, his usually immaculate appearance disheveled. His silver hair stuck up oddly on one side, his tie was loosened, and deep circles shadowed his eyes. Zephyr, he said, attempting an ingratiating smile that didn't match his desperate eyes. May I come in? I didn't move from the doorway. Why? We need to talk. Professionally. I don't work for you anymore. Remember the security escort? The champagne toast to my replacement? He winced. That was unfortunate timing. Was it? Or was it exactly what you intended? To humiliate me on my way out? Look, we're facing some technical challenges with the implementation. Brooke is brilliant, but she's encountering some unexpected variables in your architecture. I leaned against the doorframe. My mess, you mean? Isn't that what you called it while raising your glass? His facade cracked slightly. I never said. I read lips, Elton. A skill I developed during all those meetings where you talked over me. He straightened, switching tactics. The city is experiencing severe disruption. Emergency services are compromised. This is bigger than professional disagreements. True, I nodded. Sounds like an excellent opportunity for Brooke to demonstrate those conventional approaches you were so excited about. Zephyr, please, we're prepared to offer you a consulting contract. Triple your former salary. Just help us stabilize the system. I studied the man who'd dismissed 3 years of my life as a mess, who'd watched me be escorted out like a criminal, who'd toasted my replacement before my desk was even cold. No, just like that? Just like that. The same way you fired me. His face hardened. This isn't about your wounded pride. Lives are literally at stake. They always were. That's why I worked 60-hour weeks perfecting that system while you cut my team to improve quarterly numbers. That's why I missed my sister's wedding, optimizing emergency vehicle routing. That's why I skipped holidays and vacations and sleep. My voice remained steady. You never cared about lives when it was me sacrificing everything for them. I'll go to the board, he threatened. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I smiled then. Go ahead. Tell them exactly how badly you mismanaged this transition. Explain why you fired the one person who understood the system without ensuring knowledge transfer. I'm sure they'll be impressed with your leadership. Color drained from his face. What do you want? For you to leave my apartment. After Elton left, I turned my phone off and took a long, hot shower. Water washed over me as I processed what Iris had said. Real people suffering. That truth hovered like a weight. Whatever Elton and Brooke deserved, the city didn't. I spent that afternoon walking through downtown, observing firsthand what had happened to my system. Traffic lights changed in nonsensical patterns. Vehicles bunched at intersections. Horns blared continuously in a symphony of frustration. On one corner, I watched an elderly woman wait 7 full minutes for a pedestrian signal that never came. Local news vans clustered near City Hall. A reporter stood before a camera gesturing dramatically. Day 5 of what officials are now calling the grid crisis, with no resolution in sight. By evening, I'd made my decision. Not for Elton, not for the company, for the city. I called Iris. I need specifics. What exactly is happening with the system? Her relief was audible. Brooke tried implementing her standardized algorithm package. Everything ran fine in simulation, but collapsed under real conditions. She can't figure out why your code works in some sectors, but not others. Why some intersections adapt while others freeze. Because she's looking for consistent rules where there aren't any, I explained. The system doesn't follow textbook principles. It's adaptive, organic. That's what I tried telling her. She keeps saying your documentation is insufficient. I laughed bitterly. My documentation is meticulous. She just doesn't understand what she's reading. Will you help? Please? Even just advice? I hesitated. I'll think about it. The next morning, I received a text from an unknown number. An address, a time, and 5 words. Please, for the city. Mayor Vivienne. I recognized the address. A small cafe far from corporate headquarters. Neutral ground. Smart. Mayor Vivienne looked exhausted when I arrived. The weight of a paralyzed city evident in the new lines on her face. She stood as I approached her corner table. Thank you for coming, she said, extending her hand. I haven't agreed to anything, I reminded her, sitting down. I know, she signaled for coffee. But you're here, which means you care what happens to this city. The same way you cared when you designed a system that could have transformed urban mobility forever. Could have? Your former employer is considering shutting it down completely, reverting to the old system. I felt an unexpected pang at the thought of my creation being discarded. That would be unfortunate. It would be catastrophic, she corrected. Emergency response times are up 40%. We've had 2 traffic fatalities that might have been prevented with faster ambulance arrival. Schools can't run buses on schedule. People can't get to work. The server delivered our coffee. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, buying time. I understand you were treated poorly, the mayor continued, her voice gentle but direct. I witnessed your dedication during development. I saw the brilliance of what you built, and I was shocked to learn you'd been removed from the project. Did they tell you I was removed or did they say I left? She met my eyes. They said you'd moved on to other opportunities. I knew it was corporate language for something else. They fired me without warning, replaced me with someone who questioned my methods without understanding them, celebrated as security marched me out. She winced. I'm sorry, truly. But right now, 2 million people are suffering because the system you built, the system that worked beautifully, is failing without you. It's failing because they thought anyone could take over without understanding the underlying approach, because they valued credentials over proven results, because I know, she interrupted, and they were catastrophically wrong. But punishing them is punishing everyone else too. I stared into my coffee, conflicted. The mayor reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. Help us fix this. Not for them, for the city. I can hire you directly as a municipal consultant. Bypass the company entirely. They own the system. They licensed it to us. And right now, they're in breach of contract by providing non-functional infrastructure. We have legal grounds. For the first time in days, I felt a spark of something beyond anger. A possibility. I'd need certain guarantees, I said slowly. Complete creative control. My name on everything. The patents, the white papers, everything. And I choose my team. Mayor Vivian's eyes widened slightly. You've thought about this. I'm always thinking. It's both my greatest strength and the reason I don't sleep much. She nodded. I'll make it happen. As I walked home from that meeting, my phone buzzed with a text from Iris. Emergency board meeting tomorrow. Elton saying system needs complete rebuild. Brooke blaming sabotage in your code. Help! I smiled to myself. Sabotage. Of course. Because it couldn't possibly be that Brooke, with all her prestigious degrees and conventional thinking, simply couldn't comprehend what I'd built. It had to be deliberate, undermining rather than her own limitations. That night, as I organized my notes and prepared for what would come next, I received one final call from Brooke herself. I answered on the last ring. Zephyr. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. We're talking now, I replied. I know what you did. The accusation in her tone was unmistakable. What exactly did I do, Brooke? You know exactly what. The missing protocols, the undocumented overrides, the intentionally misleading variable names. You set me up to fail. I laughed, genuinely amused. Is that what you think? That I somehow anticipated being fired and deliberately created a system no one else could run? Then explain why nothing works the way it should. Maybe it works exactly as it should. Maybe you just don't understand how it should work. The silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke, her voice smaller. I need your help. I need your help. 3 small words that must have cost Brooke's pride dearly. I savored the moment, thinking of her standing in the wreckage of what she'd so confidently believed she could handle. Interesting, I replied, keeping my voice neutral. A week ago, you were explaining to the board how my approach was needlessly complicated. I was wrong, she admitted, the words tight and clipped. The system it's beyond conventional understanding. No, it's beyond your understanding. There's a difference. Her breathing changed, a sharp inhale that told me she was struggling to maintain composure. People are suffering, Zephyr. Whatever you think of me, they don't deserve this. The same argument the mayor had made. The same moral weight pressed upon my shoulders. I'll meet with you, I said finally. Not at the office. The public library, main branch, 3rd floor study room. 10 tomorrow morning. Thank you, she breathed. I'll bring everything. Don't bring anything, I interrupted. No laptops, no tablets, just yourself and a pen. I ended the call and stood by my window, watching night settle over the struggling city. Streetlights blinked on in irregular patterns where my system should have been coordinating them perfectly with traffic flow. In the distance, sirens wailed. Another emergency vehicle fighting through congestion my system should have cleared. Sleep evaded me that night, not from stress, but from ideas flowing too rapidly to contain. By dawn, I'd filled a fresh notebook with calculations, diagrams, and a plan that went far beyond fixing what was broken. The library was nearly empty when I arrived. Brooke was already there, sitting rigidly in the study room, hair pulled back severely, dark circles shadowing her eyes. For a moment, I almost felt sympathy. Almost. Thank you for coming, she said, standing as I entered. I set my notebook on the table. Let's be clear. I'm not here to save your career. I understand. Do you? You took my job. You celebrated while security escorted me out. You told everyone you could fix my mess. She had the decency to look away. It wasn't. I didn't know they were letting you go that day. But you knew they were letting me go. Her silence was confirmation enough. Tell me what's happening with the system, I said, opening my notebook. For the next hour, Brooke detailed the cascading failures. The more she spoke, the more evident it became that she'd attempted to impose textbook solutions on my organic architecture, like trying to control a living ecosystem with mechanical rules. It's not rational, she concluded, frustration evident. Sectors that should behave identically respond completely differently to the same inputs. Because they're not identical, each sector has its own personality. Traffic grids don't have personalities. Mine do. I turned my notebook toward her. You're treating the system like it's built on static algorithms when it's actually responsive to thousands of subtle variables you're not even measuring. She stared at my diagrams. This isn't in any of the documentation, because it can't be documented in traditional ways. It's not about rules, it's about relationships between factors that most engineers don't consider important. Confusion creased her brow. Like what? Like the fact that the North Quadrant moves differently on baseball game days, even when accounting for stadium traffic, because drivers' psychology changes. Or that the downtown grid needs different timing when it rains, because pedestrians create unique patterns depending on where awnings are located. That's impossible to systematize, not impossible, just beyond conventional approaches. I closed my notebook, which is why you're failing. Her face hardened. So you'll help? I haven't decided. What would it take? Name your price. I studied her, this woman who had so confidently stepped into my position, who had dismissed years of my work with a casual certainty that she could do better. I don't want money, I said finally. I want truth. What does that mean? It means before I help anyone, I want the board to understand exactly what happened, how my system actually works, why it failed under your management. The full, unvarnished truth. She paled. You want me to admit failure. I want accountability. From everyone involved. Brooke stared at her hands. Elton will never agree. He's telling the board your system was fundamentally flawed from the beginning. That's why he brought me in. Then I guess the city stays paralyzed. I stood to leave, but Brooke reached across the table, not quite touching my arm. Wait, what if I tell the truth without him? At tomorrow's emergency board meeting, I paused. Why would you do that? Because you're right. Because I was wrong. Because this isn't about careers anymore. It's about responsibility. I didn't entirely believe her sudden moral clarity, but I nodded anyway. Tomorrow's meeting. I'll be watching what happens very carefully. As I left the library, my phone rang. Mayor Vivienne. I've secured approval for your consulting contract, she said without preamble. Direct with the city, bypassing the company entirely. You can start immediately. There's something happening tomorrow first, I replied. A board meeting I need to see the results of. A board meeting I need to see the results of. We don't have time for corporate politics, Zephyr. The situation is deteriorating hourly. 24 hours won't make a difference to the structural problems, but it might make all the difference to what happens after we fix them. As a pause. You have a plan. I always have a plan. Some are just less conventional than others. That evening, Iris called again. Brooke's been in closed-door meetings all afternoon. Something's happening. Good, I replied. Is it? Elton's telling everyone the entire project needs to be scrapped. 3 years of work. Gone. My work, I reminded her. And it's not going anywhere. The next morning, I dressed carefully in the one professional outfit I owned. A charcoal gray suit I'd worn to my grandmother's funeral 3 years earlier. I pulled my unruly hair into a neat bun, applied minimal makeup, and slipped on the pearl earrings my mother had given me for graduation. Today wasn't about fitting corporate aesthetics. It was about power. The board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. At 9:30, I walked into the company headquarters like I still belonged there. The security guard, not Dennis, looked up in surprise but said nothing as I headed for the elevator. The executive floor was hushed, tense. Through glass walls, I could see board members already gathering in the main conference room. Elton stood at the head of the table, gesturing emphatically. Brooke sat to his right, staring at her folded hands. I didn't enter. Instead, I settled into a chair in the adjacent waiting area, directly in Brooke's line of sight when she eventually looked up. Our eyes met. Something passed between us, an understanding perhaps, or a challenge. The board chairman called the meeting to order. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the room. Elton's practiced confidence, the board members' concern, Brooke's rigid posture. 10 minutes in, Elton projected graphs showing system failures. 15 minutes in, he explicitly blamed my experimental, undocumented methodology for the collapse. 20 minutes in, Brooke stood up. I leaned forward, watching her lips as she began speaking. The board members' expressions shifted from concern to surprise to something approaching shock. Elton attempted to interrupt, but the chairman silenced him. Brooke kept speaking, occasionally glancing toward where I sat. Whatever she was saying, it wasn't the narrative Elton had prepared. At exactly 10:37 a.m., the boardroom door opened. A security guard approached me. "Miss Zephyr, the board has requested your presence." I nodded, stood, smoothed my jacket, and followed him into the lion's den. Silence fell as I entered. Every head turned toward me, some curious, some hostile, some unreadable. "Thank you for joining us," the chairman said, his tone carefully neutral. "Miss Brooke has been sharing some revelatory information about your traffic system design." I nodded but said nothing. "She suggests that the current implementation failures are not due to flaws in your original design, but rather misapplication of conventional algorithms to your, what did you call it? Adaptive architecture," Brooke supplied, not meeting Elton's glare. "Yes," the chairman continued. "She further suggests that you alone fully understand how to operate the system properly, and that your dismissal was precipitous." I turned to Elton, whose face had flushed an unhealthy shade of red. "Precipitous," I repeated, an interesting choice of words for firing the one person who understood the multi-million-dollar system you'd contracted to deliver to the city. "Now see here," Elton began, but the chairman raised a hand. "Miss Zephyr, the situation is critical. The city is threatening legal action for breach of contract. Our reputation is suffering immeasurable damage. We need solutions, not recriminations." "I agree completely," I replied calmly, "which is why I've accepted a position as direct consultant to the mayor's office, effective immediately." The room erupted in confused murmurs. The chairman banged a small gavel for order. "You've what?" Elton sputtered. "The city has exercised its contractual right to engage independent expertise when the primary contractor fails to deliver functional infrastructure," I explained. "Since you licensed my system to them but can no longer make it work, they've hired me to fix it." You can't," Elton stammered. "Actually, she can," interrupted a new voice. Mayor Vivienne stood in the doorway, flanked by her legal counsel. "As of 9 o'clock this morning, the city has formally notified your company of material breach. We're exercising our right to engage Miss Zephyr directly." The chairman's expression darkened. "This is highly irregular. So was firing the creator of a proprietary system without ensuring knowledge transfer," the mayor replied smoothly. "But here we are. My system will be fully operational within 72 hours, I added, "under my direct management, with my own team." "Your team?" Elton laughed harshly. "You don't have a team." "I will," I countered. "Starting with Iris, who I'm hiring away from you, effective today. Along with any other engineers who understand the value of adaptive thinking over conventional approaches. The revenge I'd planned, the moment I'd imagined since being marched past that champagne toast, wasn't what happened next. It wasn't watching Elton sputter ineffectively or seeing the board realize their catastrophic error. It wasn't even the mayor's perfectly timed entrance. The real revenge came 48 hours later, when my restored system silently, elegantly resumed functioning across the city. When emergency response times dropped back to record lows, when traffic flowed like water finding its natural course, when the mayor held a press conference announcing the innovative architectural approach pioneered by municipal consultant Zephyr that would become a model for cities worldwide. The sweetest moment wasn't the job offers that flooded my inbox from companies who suddenly recognized my genius. It wasn't the industry recognition or the substantial consulting fees. It was the afternoon, exactly 1 month later, when I walked past my former company's headquarters on my way to the mayor's office. Through the glass lobby, I saw moving boxes and people clearing out desks. The city contract, their primary source of revenue, had been permanently reassigned to my newly formed Municipal Innovation Division. Near the entrance, looking shell-shocked, stood Elton, watching his empire crumble. Our eyes met through the glass. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded once and continued walking. My team of brilliant, unconventional thinkers waiting for me at City Hall. Because true revenge isn't about destruction, It's about building something better from the ashes of what was taken from you. If you've made it to the end of this journey with me, you know what it feels like to be underestimated, dismissed, and then vindicated. Drop a comment sharing your own story of professional redemption. Like this video if you believe in the power of unconventional thinking. And subscribe to hear more stories of triumph over corporate toxicity. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's changing the entire game.